don't care who you are, how much you've achieved. You have failed once in your life. All these people have failed. So what makes them different from me? What makes them different from you?
Welcome to Radically Loved Radio. I am your host, Rosie Acosta, yoga teacher and teacher trainer, mindfulness coach, speaker, and creative writer. I am also the founder of radicallylove.com, a website where you can go for more information about yoga, mindfulness, meditation, and lifestyle advice. On this podcast, we talk to people within our health and wellness community that are creating content through the ritualistic practice of yoga, meditation, or overall mindful living. We hope to create value in your life so that you can achieve your highest potential and live a radically loved life. To stay in touch with us, just follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Rosie Acosta and on Facebook at Radically Loved Rosie. You can sign up for our newsletter on radicallylove.com to stay up to date on future workshops, retreats, and latest podcasts. I hope that Radically Loved Radio leaves you feeling inspired to create something powerful. My teacher, Yoga Rupa Rajstreger, says, if you powerfully believe in the value you have to offer the world, your love and passion for it will be an unstoppable force. Thanks for listening. This episode is brought to you by Four Sigmatic. Four Sigmatic, the coffee that gets you fired up. Aside from supporting energy, stamina, and athletic performance, Cordyceps have been studied for their strong antioxidant properties. I have been so obsessed with this coffee for the last year. I've been drinking it and I've been traveling with it. And in case coffee doesn't pump you up enough, how about coffee paired with one of the most energy-supporting mushrooms on the planet, Cordyceps? So coffee is so energizing because it stimulates the central nervous system and the adrenal glands. But combining this with a more balanced cellular energy to support our immune system and our health function, this mushroom can result in a balanced stimulation while using only half of the amount of caffeine normally found in a coffee, which is awesome. They also have an incredible matcha mix that is my absolutely new favorite, and they want to give our listeners a gift. So for those of you who are curious and want to try the mushroom coffee that doesn't taste like mushrooms, go to foursigmatic.com/radically loved. So that's foursigmatic.com/radicallyloved for 15% off of all of their products. Thanks for listening. I'm really excited. I know I always say that, but I am for real excited to have Lisa on today. So for the people that are listening to this particular episode, which is already one of my favorites just because you're amazing, tell everyone listening who you are and just a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so thank you so much. I'm so happy to be on. My name is Lisa Bilyeu and I'm a co-founder of Quest Nutrition. So anyone that may have eaten a Quest bar, that is, I was part of building that company. And then after that, basically Quest Nutrition had really nailed it with the product and with taking care of the body. And very quickly, my husband and I realized that it's not just about the body, it's about the mind. And if you don't take care of the mind, then it doesn't actually lead to taking care of the body. So we took what we had built inside of the company, which was a studio, and we spun that off into its own entity, which we now call Impact Theory. And we basically create content that really does impact people. We bring on people who are just incredibly influential, who have also struggled themselves, from athletes to neuroscientists to, just regular famous people, I was going to say, but is there such a thing?
I don't know.
Just successful people who have really accomplished something, to talk about the struggles that they've gone through. Because I think it's very easy to look at these successful people and say, well, it's okay for them, or, I wish I was like them. But the truth is they're like everybody else. They struggle, they have issues. And so bringing these people on and really using their stories as empowerment has just really made a difference to people who are struggling with the mind first.
Yes.
And then on the side, I also started a podcast called the Heroic Podcast, which focuses mostly on female empowerment. I'm a little hesitant when I say female empowerment because it's not just for females. I think female empowerment is all inclusive with how do you empower yourself to be in a relationship with them, with a guy, or how do you empower yourself in business to be around other men and also empower them. I don't think it's about bringing men down. It's about raising women. So
I mean,
that was a very. Sorry.
No, I'm like, because I don't want to like jump all over you, but I'm like, yes, everything that you're saying, I think is so important, especially, the current state that we're in, because I don't think there should be too much of a divide. I think that it's important for men to be included in these conversations, because how else are they going to learn how to continue to empower us, and we're going to continue to empower them unless we're all on the same page. God,
I love that way you said empower them. You're so right. Sorry, I love that.
No, it's good. No, but don't you think it's so true? Especially with everything going on right now. I am such a huge fan of people being able to speak up and speak their truth with, the Me Too movement and, all of these things happening. But I also think it's important for us to empower the men that are doing right, that are sort of in a place where they can empower their wives or their girlfriends or their mothers or their sisters or whomever it is in their lives. I think that we need to be able to sort of work together, and it's a bigger conversation about how we utilize that empowerment to help each other and not just, you know what I mean? I think
absolutely. If you could see me right now, I am nodding ferociously.
That's so great. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. And I think, you have been very open on all of your channels and interviews that I've read and on social media, because I obviously stalker you all the time, about your own struggles with your health and your own sense of confidence. And one of the things that people that listen to this podcast really like to hear about is how we all kind of pull out of this space of feeling insecure and feeling like we're stuck sometimes, or like we can't do something. So I wanted to ask you, and I know this is something that you share really openly, I wanted to ask you sort of if you could just give us a little bit of insight in that part of your life where you've struggled, or you felt like you were in a place that you didn't think you were going to come out of, and how you were able to come out of that place.
And are you talking the places in health, or are you talking about places in self-confidence as a young female?
Well, either or both.
Oh, all right. Let's go into self-confidence then first. As a teenage girl, I don't think I'm unique in any way, shape, or form when I say that I struggled with confidence at the age of, 16, 17, with all the media out there and judging yourself and telling myself I wasn't good enough, and how do I compete with all these other beautiful women. I was 5'1", unibrow, had a head brace when I was in my early teens, and so I got made fun of a lot for that. And that really did stick with me and made me insecure about myself and how I saw myself. And I think that's very common. And I think that the big thing is, how do you get out of that? How do you go from obviously a teenager to, your early 20s to your 30s and really evolve? Because I think that's so important to know. You absolutely can evolve, but you have to do it yourself. It's never going to happen for you. And that was like the biggest realization for me, I think, that allowed me to go, okay, well, hang on a minute. I feel terrible about myself. I have no confidence. I'm looking at all these other women thinking they're amazing. And the negative voice in my head is getting louder. And when I started realizing, hang on, the negative voice in my head is in my control, right? Whether I listen to it or not, or whether I put weight on it or not. And I'm the one who's actually saying, yeah, the voice is true. But what if I did the opposite? What if I didn't tell the negative voice that it was true? And then like that notion really, really did rock me. Yeah. And so then I started to think about like, okay, well, what is the brain made of? And when you think about like the way I see things is different to how you see things, right? Even colors. Like if life can be that simplistic, let's say, where I look at a tree and I see a certain type of tone of green, and you look at the tree but you see a different type of tone. It's the receptors of your eyes. So if the receptors are telling you something slightly different that it's telling me, if what I'm hearing is being interpreted negative, but that same thing you can interpret as being positive, what is going on? Like why do we why can we take something and see something in completely two different ways, even if the situation is exactly the same? And then as I started to develop that, it's like, okay, well, my brain is a construct, and it's constructing all these things based on where I've come from, my history, the fact that I got made fun of. And like just piecing everything together made me realize, like, wow, it is in my control. And that was like if you could have like a mic drop, that was the version of my mic drop back then, where I was like, it was so powerful to me to realize that it's not everybody else, right? It's not other people making fun of me. It's not other people who may be putting me down or seeing things in a certain way. Like, it's me listening to it or me putting weight to it.
Yeah.
Right. So the difference is how I'm responding to all these external things. And yeah, that completely changed everything for me. Carol Dweck has written a book called Mindset, which is phenomenal. It basically, it says that there are two types of people, someone with a fixed mindset and someone with a growth mindset. And that notion also really made a difference to me, because it's like, okay, if I have a growth mindset, it's about taking pride on what I'm learning and what I'm doing to get better every day. It's not taking my fixed mindset and saying, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're not pretty enough. It's saying, okay, you're terrible at this right now, but you can get better, right? Having the growth mindset that allows you to know, okay, don't value where you are now. Don't value how good you are, how smart you are, how intelligent, how talented. Value the fact that you can do something about it. Value the fact that you can get better at that. And that just made me go, wow, I can now admit all my insecurities. I can admit everything I'm bad at, but have the confidence to know I can control that and I can get better at it. And I started priding myself on getting better at it. And my husband's been a massive advocate for that. He also thinks the same way. So there's no if you fail at something, there's no one sitting there going, I told you so.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, this is a failure. This is amazing. What can we learn from it? Because tomorrow I'm more powerful for it.
Right. Oh, I love that so much. And I think it's something that most of us really need to focus on. I think that a lot of us maybe sometimes don't do that. I'm curious, so how long did it take you to sort of get into that mindset? Or was it something that from back then you learned at a young age and you just sort of had this drive the whole time?
That's a good question. I think I'm stubborn enough to not give up. It's just a part of my personality where like I don't like failing, and
Yeah.
so it was. So because I didn't like failing, I always kept going, but I never realized but every time I would keep going, it would really be a little dent to my ego. And once I started making the shift with my mindset and going, oh my God, this is terrible. I totally suck. I failed. I fell flat on my face. I don't want
Yeah.
people to see that. I would just put in mantras in my head over time. I'm like, Lisa, remind yourself that you chose that, right? Remind yourself you chose to take the risk. Remind yourself that you can get better at it. And all these little phrases and mantras that I would put in, it definitely took time. It was like, okay, that didn't work. And I always talk about things like, as in like your sober moments. And when I say sober, I mean emotionally sober.
Yeah.
So when you're hurt, when you fail, your emotions take over, you can't trust them. Right. So that's what I, think of as not being sober. But when you're like in a super good place and, you're having a great day, everything's gone right, you wake up, you're happy, whatever that situation is, that's what I call emotionally sober. And so in my emotionally sober moments, I tell myself, all right, you're going to fall flat on your face again. It could be right now, it could be tomorrow, it could be next week. But when you do, Lisa, remind yourself that you can do anything you set your mind to it, but you may not be able to do it right now. But just tell yourself you can get better. So I'll put like alarms in my phone. When things seem to always keep going wrong and I may not be enjoying what I'm doing, I tell myself I chose this life. because that's very powerful to me in reminding myself that it's not other people's doing. And I used to do that all the time. I used to point at other people and be like, oh, but they did that, right? They made fun of me. It's giving the power away. So
Yeah.
once I remind myself I chose this life, it just takes time. It's like training in the gym, right? It's like doing
Yeah.
yoga. Like, your poses are incredible, but I bet you didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to do this pose, and then you nailed it,
Right.
right? Like, you had to practice and train.
Yeah, and it's a sort of like a conditioning that you do to yourself over time, and this is sort of the other thing I want to talk to you about, like this idea that we can get there overnight, or it's a quick fix, and
Right.
it's like it's not. It's like that's why those fad diets always fail, and that's why we start something and then we can't finish because we're so trained now with instant gratification, and we forget the discipline that it takes to be able to take our time to accomplish something. And I feel like, I mean, I don't even want to open that can of worms, but do you know what I mean? This
Oh,
whole
100.
idea. So how do you think for you? I mean, that's obviously I can look at a powerful woman such as yourself and see that this has been a journey, and you've worked and you've been dedicated, and your will and drive have taken you to where you are. It wasn't like it just happened overnight. Like you just woke up one
Right.
day and it's like, oh, I'm this really successful entrepreneur who's doing all of these things. It's like, so for you, aside from, you said that you're like not willing to take no for an answer, essentially. How
Yeah.
how have you been able to keep the momentum on this perpetual climb?
Yeah, I mean, you really nailed the nail on the head when you said it's not a quick fix. And I think so many people want the quick fix. But what I did is I stepped back and said, instead of striving for that quick thing and then like failing and losing encouragement, think of it as like there's stepping stones.
Mm,
And so I put myself into a situation where, okay, I have a grand goal, and the grand goal may be 2 or 3 years away, right? Let's even take yoga, which I'm terrible at. I'm not flexible in any way, shape, or form. I'm a lift weights kind of chick. But with it, whether it's weights or yoga or anything, right? You don't. I think intellectually, there's no way you're going to be able to go in the gym and all of a sudden have biceps. You're not going to be able to hit a yoga pose and be super flexible. We all know that, but for whatever reason, when it comes to like mindset and when it comes to achieving things in, I think, the business world and the brain, people don't have that same understanding. And because I love the gym, I really do make that analogy and that connection a lot. Where it's
mhm.
like, okay, I want to be able to lift, let's say I want to deadlift 100 pounds. Well, if I can only get 50 right now, I know it's a process. There's no way I'm going to be able to wake up tomorrow and lift that 100 pounds. So, what are my small goals? Okay, in a week, I want to be able to get up by 5 pounds. In 3 weeks, I want to be able to get up to another 10, 20 pounds. And then I set myself these little wins, because for me, I need the wins. I really do. Like, I'm not going to be bashful of that. Like, those are my minor, like my little encouragements all along the way. But I still have in sight the 100-pound deadlift. Like, that's very clear to me. I'll write it on a piece of paper. I'll put it on my wall. I love alarms on my phone. So I'll put in my phone, right? Like, don't forget you're going to deadlift 100 pounds by X day. And I'll put myself that reminder. But I will set myself the small little goals along the way, because it's hard, right, to stay motivated for like an entire year, to just keep telling yourself when you fail and fail and fail and fall on your face time and time and time again.
Yeah.
Like, you have to create momentum, or I would say motivation, for yourself. No one else is going to do that. And I think that's where people get tripped up a lot as well, is they expect it to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's so true. And there's so much to unpack in that, but I love that you say that, and I think it really just takes our ability to create that as our focal point.
Mm.
So for I'm like, I don't want to jump around with topics, but there's so many things I want to ask you about.
Let's
So
call this part one.
okay, this will be part one. The other thing that I really love that you speak to is the support that you have. You and Tom have this really amazing relationship, and I'm curious to to ask how impactful it's been and how important it is to have, another strong person in the relationship to kind of help propel you or help encourage, or sort of like the dynamic that a relationship plays. And do you think that, for the women or men out there that are single, if they don't have that, like how can they begin to cultivate more of that empowerment from their tribe? I know that's a lot of questions, but I think you can answer it.
Let's dig into this. So I think everything is to the individual. For me, having my husband as my support system has been tremendous. I wouldn't say that's necessarily the same for everybody, but this is what has worked for me. But if I didn't have Tom specifically, I would find somebody to fill that role. And what I mean right now is he calls me on my crap. Right? Like he tells me when I'm slacking off, he holds me accountable to the things I've said I wanted to do. And I need accountability. That's just how I function. That's how I work. Like for whatever reason, that is has seemed to work for me in creating and achieving my goals. So I don't necessarily know if it needs to be a partner for everybody. For me, it does. Like it's worked well. But just a constant reminder, holding me accountable. Like, hey, you said you wanted this. So what you're doing right now is not getting you to that goal. So, you need to buckle down. You need to, like he would be very truthful with me on that front. So in my personal female empowerment goals, like he's the one who has been extremely encouraging because I've said that that's what I've wanted.
Yeah.
So that to me has definitely been fantastic. I would suggest anybody out there to find somebody who can maybe help them be accountable. I think it has to be someone that you can absolutely trust because your instincts are to fight back. Right. Yeah. It's like with anything. It's like with any criticism, that anybody will say, we are taught to protect ourselves. So in protecting your instinct is to deny it, right? Push back. That's not true. And this goes back to about being like, how emotionally sober are you? I know I cannot trust my emotions when my ego has been dented. Right? I know I'm very honest about that about myself. So if something is denting my ego, which I think everybody has an ego, it's just, do you let your ego get in your way or not? So if you know you have an ego and something is getting dented, how do you make sure, right? Like, there's like this massive knock-on effect that I'm going through here. You need to be able to trust that person isn't using that against you.
Yeah. Oh, right? That is like we're opening up a whole nother
segment. I know, I'm so sorry. I'm like opening words.
No, you know what? So this is apropos to, over the holidays. I'm just going to say this because of what you're talking about. But I love everything that you're saying because I think it's definitely true, especially in my relationship. Tori and I have been together for 14 years. And so
wow.
we've been able to sort of go through those same cycles and obviously we love and support each other. And it's great to have somebody that's always encouraging you and is always that support, but is always going to, call you on your things. So,
you about to say something about the holiday?
Oh, yeah, the holiday. That's right. I'm like, so I was watching, I think you posted this on Instagram, but it was sort of like how to deal with your in-laws or something if you don't get along with them or something. And I was like, it was so brilliant, Lisa. And I was like thinking about relationships and, I'm having this sort of focus group right now with single women. So I have a lot of single women that I work with as a coach, but also as a teacher and just as a friend. And I've found all of these questions come up about partnership. How important is it? These women that are successful entrepreneurs, they get into relationships and with the online dating and all these things. Like there's all these sort of issues around dating at the moment and being in relationships and being able to be in a sustainable long-term relationship. And so I happened to watch that clip and I was like, wow, that's so important. I think at the end of the day, and if you want, you can tell the audience like what you said. So it's you posted this around Christmas time, and it was about.
Yeah, God, I need to try and rack my brain. What did I say? I think it was about just like the things to do if you don't get along with your
Yes,
in-laws.
yes,
And
yes.
how to handle it. And I think so many people, when I've been with my husband now for 17 years, we've been married
Yeah.
for 15, and it's just when I was younger, I had a very different perspective on relationships and the roles that people play, and I kind of just thought of it as very black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it was like, if I had a problem with my in-laws, like I would kind of, I guess, turn to my husband and like almost blame him. And it's like, well, hang on, that's not right, that's not fair. And so we have a very, like, the most candid, honest relationship. And I would always advise people to have that type of relationship, to the point where, like, you can be so brutally honest, but as long as it comes from love, you can get through whatever issue.
Yeah.
And as long as you want what's best for them, then I think you also can be honest, because it's like, look, I love you, but this is a problem. And so if it's your in-laws and there's a problem, it's, look, I always want to show respect. But at the same time, I'm not willing to lose who I am as a human being for anything or anyone. And that includes my husband, right?
Yeah.
And when you've been together with someone for so long, you can make that much of a grand statement. I think it can really show how important that is.
Yeah.
And to me, it is very important.
Well, yeah, that's sort of what really stood out for me, because I related to where these women are, because so much of the time we try to cater who we are and alter who we are to impress somebody, especially in the beginning. You try to sort of not even convince yourself, we put our best foot forward when we're dating somebody. It's like, you don't want to show them all the little crazy tidbits yet. You want to unveil slowly.
Yeah.
And so we learn all these different ways of sort of compromising certain things. And look, I know relationships, a lot of the times there is compromise, but I think that when it comes to who you are and exactly what you're saying, when you're able to be that raw and that honest with somebody at the gate, it really changes the whole dynamic of the relationship, right?
Yeah, that's so true. And I really do think back to how to my first date with my husband, and it's like, what I would do differently, like the entire date would have been completely different if I was to relive it now. And that's actually the one biggest advice I'd give, like, be yourself. Stop trying to put on a facade, because eventually, like you said, it will come out, people. Like, the true you will come out. And here's what's beautiful. If you have confidence in who you are, right? If you can say, yes, I'm terrible at this, and this is like, I'm like the worst, I'm so messy, or like I'm just a complete, I'm obsessive compulsive, like whatever that thing is about you that isn't going to like necessarily like come across amazingly well, and you try and like a drip campaign, I call it, right? Like, imagine like every couple of dates you kind of start showing the real you. Like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to trick them into dating you, like, and it never occurred to me. I just thought, oh, he's really hot, I really want to date this guy, so put your best foot forward. And so, but now I would be like, wow, I would be aggressively me, because if in me being like my true self and that person still wants to be with me, okay, now that's something that's like, all right, we have that in common, and now we can build on it. And look, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, and I think you can be honest with yourself, like, is your issues actually getting in your way of your life and your relationships? So being honest with that,
right?
But someone that can accept you for you, like, I love the quirkiness and the weirdness of people. So if you're trying to hide that from me, the chances I'm actually not going to respond to you as well.
Yeah.
Right? So if you can be yourself, take confidence in knowing who you are, even when you know that what those traits are terrible, right? Like, and you're working on them, doesn't mean you have to accept them. I think you can work on them.
Yes.
Yeah, so that first date for me would have been very different. Luckily, somehow I still managed to, catch him. But
no, that's great. I think that's great advice, and I really feel that the more we reinstate that and continue to empower that, we'll start to sort of grow out of this idealized version that we think we should be for somebody else. Because I don't think it stops just in dating. I think that if we do this, we're doing this in every area of our lives, and we then begin to sort of create this fragmented personality where at work I'm a certain way, and then in a relationship I'm a certain way, and then with my family I'm a certain way. And I feel like that's still, you're taking away, I don't know, I think it has more to do with us acquiescing to what we want to people to see, you
Right.
know?
And that comes from wanting to be liked, right?
Yeah, of course.
You know, it's
Yes.
like you only want to be accepted. And man, when, being a 16-year-old female, I'm sure everyone can relate to the fact that we just wanted to be accepted. We wanted to be part of the group. And yeah, just over time, I guess for me, it's like now I work to like not be like everybody else,
Yeah.
because I can, if I look at other people and I say, okay, well, they live, let's say, what we quote unquote call normal, is that the type of life I want? And just really analyzing what I want to do and who I want to be, and really like looking into your emotions and your feelings about it versus looking at other people and saying I want to be like them, because you don't know how they're feeling. You're just
Yeah.
seeing the external version that they're showing you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to, and again, it's like we're just like basically starting a bunch of little conversations that we're going to have to do this again so we can expand
Love
on
it.
every single topic. What area in your life currently do you feel the most free?
Oh, I didn't see that one coming. Feel the most free.
Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, that's a good question. Well, I'm definitely not free when it comes to content, because I definitely have to think about the value that I'm bringing to people. So if one
Oh.
day, yeah, I definitely have to externalize that and look at like who am I appealing to. So that
Mm-hmm.
even if it may seem like free, like, oh, hey, I want to talk about this. In fact, this is a perfect example. If I want to talk on my Instagram page about self-confidence, or female empowerment, I need to understand my audience so that I can speak in the language that they will hear me in, because my goal is to get my message across.
Yeah.
And so if I want to get my message across, I have to think about who I'm getting it across to and then what language I need to use to get that across. But it's still me, but I'm not free to just blurt out. Like I swear a lot, so I'm not just going to swear all the time, because some people may not, right? So I'm not free in my day-to-day position of executing on content. I think with business, like, and this may be controversial, everyone may agree with this, but with business, I'm definitely not free, because even though I have the control and I'm financially, I put me and my husband, we put our own money into it.
Yeah.
It's still, you have to, all my actions are dictated by what my eventual goal is. So it's like, I may want to say, screw this, I don't want to work today, I'm going to go to the pool and hang out with my friends, right? That may actually be what I want to do, but I remind myself of my goals. And so I say, Lisa, you can't do that. So I'm definitely not free there either. I'm kind of giving you all the things that I'm not free
No,
of.
but sometimes but those are the things. Sometimes we have to list the ways we're not in order
Yeah.
to.
I think the one thing that I would say that I'm completely free on, I guess, is my relationship with my husband. I don't sugarcoat things with him. I don't pretend that I'm somebody I'm not. I am 100% transparent. And so if I'm, let's say, super upset about something, I'll go to him and I'll say, I'll pull him aside and say, like, I'm really upset. I just need to vent. Please don't give me advice. I just need to let it out. And I'll show the complete ugly side, because everyone has one. I'll show the ugly side of like, I'm just, I'm so upset. I can't believe this happened and blah, 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 blah. Get it out and then go, cool. I realized that was an emotional burst that I needed so that I could recover from. Thanks, babe, for listening. And then I'll go on with my day. But I won't try to act a certain way in front of him. I don't try to act stoic in front of him. It's a process that I may need, and he gets that, and he understands that he's, let's say, a tool for me to help me get me past that.
Yeah.
But I don't pretend. But when it comes to employees, even with friends, right, I think that we do make sure that we're thinking of them and thinking of like, I don't want to upset them if I say this.
Yeah.
We're always in our own heads, but when it comes to my husband, we've agreed as a unit that we are always going to be 100% transparent with each other, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Oh, yeah, that's great. I would agree with that for myself. I think I've actually never thought about that. And you're absolutely right, because everything, when it comes to relationships, yeah, you still do have to sort of toe the line a little bit you know, because it's still this idea that it's like we want to be liked and we don't want our friends to stop being our friends, or, you know, our family members to stop calling us or something. Well, some of them are fine,
Yeah.
but um,
Sometimes you make them
some,
to
yeah.
stop calling.
Are there any sort of like words of wisdom or a mantra or a quote that you've had that you've always said to yourself?
Always say that. Kind of, they evolve over time.
Okay.
Um, but I have the ones most recently that I have, like I said, I like alarms.
Yes.
And so there's a couple that I actually have in my phone right now. So one is I wish, I wonder. And I have that go off in my phone every morning. And I answer my own question. So I like what? I wish what? And I wonder what? And I fill in the blanks. So every day it's different. So this morning, I like how yesterday's shoot went. I wish I had stepped up my game and been more on top of it when it came to the schedule. And I wonder what cool content I'm going to make today, right? Like I just answer those three things. And every day I do it, and I do it every morning, and it really puts things into perspective for me, because it makes me realize, like, what am I fighting for? What am I enjoying? And then what is my vision?
Yeah.
So that's one alarm right now that I have that I just repeat. My biggest thing though is that this is in your control. That is like the biggest thing that I always tell myself. I chose this life. It just puts things in perspective, because it's my personality is, especially when I was younger, is to blame everybody else, because I didn't want to take a dent to my own ego. Right? Like if I have to say it's my fault, oh God, then I have to actually address my own inadequacies. Like that just, like, oh God, that makes me feel worse about myself. So if you can blame other people and you'd be like, oh, hey, I'm great. It's other people that messed up. Like you're trying to protect your ego, but then over time you realize it does not make for a successful marriage with that attitude. It does not make for a successful business with that attitude. Or a friend, right? You can keep blaming your friend. Let's say you get into an argument with them and you're like, I can't believe she did this and she said that. And it's like, okay, it's easy for me to point the finger, but Lisa, if you can identify your part in this, if you can identify what you've done, that it was in your control, that you chose to do that, no one forced you to do X, Y, and Z, or no one forced you to say X, Y, and Z, that came out of your mouth, like, then it was so empowering for me. So that is, like, out of everything, the biggest one that I think and feel has changed my entire life.
Oh God, that's so good. That's so good. I'm literally just like, my hand is holding my head. I'm just like dreaming. I'm like, this is so amazing.
And I have like 10 more, which we'll save for part 2 of our interview.
I love that we're already queuing this. You guys that are listening, that there's going to be another one. So just
right?
You better look for it. This is kind of like it's on the same, I would say, topic. Well, no, maybe it's a little bit of a different topic, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on being an entrepreneur. There's millions of entrepreneurs out there in the world, millions. And, there are people that have achieved the level of success that they've wanted, and some who are still in the process. But and obviously you and your husband run an incredibly successful business, and you're incredible entrepreneurs, and you're incredible people, which sometimes business people aren't. I know that you both really pride yourselves in providing value for people, and for the people listening, it's free. Like, there's a lot of stuff out there that they do, that they just put out there, and I think it's super helpful. I know for me it has been.
Thank you.
What do you think, if I were to say there's a special sauce that entrepreneurs have and you all share it, it's all the same, what is it?
God, the first thing that comes to mind that I really do believe truly to my core is failure can be amazing. Oh. It is literally the perspective of how you see failure, because I don't care if you're Michael Jordan, if you're Barack Obama, right? Whether you're an athlete, the president, Elon Musk, like, I don't care who you are, how much you've achieved. You have failed once in your life. All these people have failed. So what makes them different from me? What makes them different from you? Like, the thing that separates them, or separates, I think, successful people, is they use failure as a tool to get better and improve. Other people, if you fail, like, wow, that sucked. I felt terrible about myself, so I'm never going to do it again. And I'm the person that says, wow, that sucked. How is this the best thing that ever happened to you? All right, wow, you just learned to never do it like that again because that was terrible, right? Like, okay, now I'm more powerful, more knowledgeable for it. And I use failure as a tool to empower me, not to break me. And I really think that is a massive key, because everybody fails. But how do you deal with it?
That needs to be on a shirt, and I need to wear it every day.
Everybody fails.
No, it's true. I've talked about this on the podcast before, how I have this big aversion to the word failure. Not to say that I like to look at it as, I've done a lot of things that haven't worked, for sure. I've done a lot of things that haven't worked or turned out the way I wanted to, but I think the actual word failure for me has really been sort of this, I've had just like a resistance towards it, because to me, the way I see it, it's like there's no coming back from it. If something doesn't work for me, it's like I just move on. And I think this is just coming from a mentality from, growing up as a young kid during the LA riots. And I grew up around a lot of gang violence and a lot of like drug use, and just sort of the odds were against me as a child, growing up. It was, I was primed and set up to be a part of the system. I came out of that, and so to me, failure would have been, becoming a part of it. Failure would have been me, like, just continuing the pathology of my family or continuing the pathology of my environment. And I didn't. And so to me, I've always thought it's exactly what you're saying. I feel the same way. I've always been driven, and I'm like, oh, well, that sucked or that didn't work. So I'll start something else, and of course I've had moments where I'm like, maybe this isn't the right thing. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But those moments are fleeting. And I found that by conditioning myself to really get into more of that mindset, like, you move forward. You just continue. You use it as a tool to move forward. Now I feel different about failure. I feel more familiar with it, and I feel like it's more of a friend than a foe, where I'm like, oh, if this fails, if this doesn't work, that's okay. It's not so daunting. Whereas before, I think that my feeling was so sort of like set around this idea that like failure was death, like that was failure. So I love that you said that, and I really appreciate that the way in which you said it, because I think it's so true, and I feel like more of us need to hear that more often.
Oh, I was just going to say to all your listeners, like, the one thing that I used to do, right, is like, okay, the next time you guys fail, the next time, say, I failed, I'm not a failure. Right? To me, that's such a big difference. I failed, but I'm not a failure. And when I started telling myself that, because like anything, you have to make this a habit. It won't become a habit unless you force it. You have to practice it. So next time you fail, because guys, you're going to fail. I'm going to fail too. Tell yourself, I failed, I'm not a failure. And then ask yourself this very next question, which I stole from Tony Robbins, which is, if this is the worst thing that's ever happened, how do I make it the best thing? So take a failure. Once you fail, tell yourself you're not a failure, you failed. And then how do I make this thing that I failed at the best thing that could have happened to me? That perspective changed everything.
So true.
That was quite a deep breath there.
I know. I was like, I had to take it in. At least I knew this was going to be good. I have to take it in. Okay, so I want to be respectful of your time. I only have a couple more questions, and I want to make sure that I ask you these.
I'm loving this conversation, Rosie. So let's do it.
The next couple of questions are more along the line of sort of any reflective wisdom that you may or may not have given yourself. So if you can go back in time, what would you tell your 16-year-old self right now? What words of wisdom or advice?
So part of me kind of wants to say I'm not going to tell myself anything, because I think it's in the discovery that has made me who I am today. And I know that's kind of a little cheesy, but it's true, right? Like if I could go back and save myself some heartache, I don't know if I'd be where I am. So I do struggle with that. But if we could say, okay, Lisa, you still are who you are today, but still give yourself advice back then, I would probably say, don't fixate on your looks. Like, it's kind of simple, but man, that was such a big thing for me, because I was so fixated on how bad my teeth were. I used to get teased for having a big nose, for having the unibrow, that all the external things really did affect me emotionally, and then affected my confidence, and then had a big knock-on effect. Whereas if I didn't really care about my looks, I don't think that it would have had such an effect, obviously, in my self-confidence, and then, that kind of knock-on effect. But I do feel like that's part of my story. A lot of people look back, I think, at their past and say, this happened to me and it's really bad. But going back, and I've repeated this a million times in this interview, but perspective is everything, right? So it's like, do I tell myself the story of my childhood was bad, or, I got teased and how horrific that was for me? Is that the story I'm telling myself? Or am I telling myself that, like, wow, yeah, you got teased and you came through it, and you're strong enough to not have bowed to it, and you're strong enough to not have let that crumble you, and you're strong enough to not let that derail your life? Like, that's the story I tell myself. So if I didn't have that, could I still tell myself that story? So, but yeah, so I think if I had to tell myself something, it was, don't focus on looks.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I like that. What would your 80-year-old self tell you now?
Oh, that's great. I love your questions. Oh, what would it tell me now? That your health is going to get better. And I know we haven't even really touched on my health issues, but I've been struggling for many, many years with microbiome issues. And it's been a really, really long and arduous journey. And I know that I will get through it. That's one thing I tell myself. But to hear my 80-year-old self tell me, like, Lisa, you're right, you will get through this, it's just kind of like a nice little reassurance.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Lisa, so good.
Can I ask you what your 80-year-old self would tell yourself now?
Oh, yeah, of course. She would say, you need to relax.
Interesting. So if you already know that, what are you doing about it now?
I don't know. It's one of those things where I could see her telling me that, and I can see myself sort of stretching, and this is in regard in time, because I feel like a lot of my career has really been about the timeline, and it's got to happen during a certain timeline, and it's got to happen, and this is going to happen this year, and this is going to happen the next year, and it's like I feel so much pressure, with different things, and I think innately I know that pressure doesn't need to be there, and just hearing that, and I should talk to my 80-year-old self more often.
I was going to say, right, because clearly you're aware of what is going on now.
Of course,
she's pretty wise.
She is, but the problem is I'm more concerned with talking to my 15-year-old self.
Interesting. Well, that's fascinating. I know that we've got to go and you're wrapping the interview, but that's so fascinating that you're more concerned with the past you than the future.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Oh, we can unpack that on a later date.
Like, I would love to dive deep into that. I'm such a fan of psychology, and like, all right, Rosie,
I'm sure you could break that down. Yeah, we do. Okay, so just to ask you the last question, it's about this, this podcast and this forum that I've created, and I feel like really we've created, because I feel like everything everyone in my life has done has affected the the whole, right? I feel like we're all connected, and radically loved is this idea that we are radically loved by God or source or whatever it is you believe in, higher power, that we are loved and supported, and the universe works for us and not against us, right? So it's this idea of union, of collection and connection. And so there are two questions, and the first one is, how do you feel radically loved? And then the second part to that is, what do you radically love?
Oh, and when you say, how do I feel radically loved, you mean by someone specific, or what do you?
Well, see, I like to leave it open-ended, because it's like sometimes people utilize a someone, or sometimes people utilize a something. So it's open. You get to decide.
Yeah, wow. The first thing really is my husband. We've agreed to share our lives together. We don't take that lightly. We have agreed that we will be married forever. Now, look, that doesn't mean that I don't believe in divorce. I think that if you're profoundly unhappy, that you need to make a change and take control of that. But my husband and I do radically love each other. I don't think love is enough for a relationship. I think it needs to go way beyond that. But in every aspect of who I am as a human being, from the entrepreneur to the the funny, silly girl that lives inside me, to the super unhealthy trying to figure my microbiome out, my husband has all along the way supported, and I felt that. And so, yeah, that has been, very instrumental for me. So I feel radically loved by my husband, no matter what situation we end up in. And then was the question, what do I radically love?
That's right.
So I don't want to be cheesy and say my husband, so I'm going to put that aside for now. I will say I radically love the process of getting better. Because I really do focus on what I'm trying to achieve. But so many times we fail, and I fail, that I really I've learned and grown to love the process. So now I don't fixate on just the results. I do think results are important, so I don't want to say that results aren't, but the process. So if I've done something or gone through something and I've loved the process, if I fail or succeed, I've still loved every moment of it. So
thank you for that, Lisa. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Honestly, it's been absolutely my pleasure. And I know your audience don't really know how much that we've been trying to get together on this interview. They would laugh at all the emails back and forth on all the issues that we had on bookings and time and internet issues. And so I hope your listeners appreciate you as much as I do, because girl, you have persistence and to make sure that this interview happened, and I cannot say how much I respect that.
Oh, Lisa, ditto. I mean, it goes to show two people that are committed are going to make it happen. It's dedication and persistence. So the people listening, where can they get more information about you and everything you're doing?
Yeah, so please follow me. I'm mostly on Instagram, so that's at Lisa Bilyeu. It's Bilyeu. And then our company is Impact Theory. So on YouTube, it's actually under my husband's name, which is Tom Bilyeu, and that's where we put all our content, where we do all our interviews. If you follow him on Facebook, my husband and I do a relationship show based on the realities of being married and working together. So, but yeah, I guess if you just follow me, I always direct people to other.
Yeah, we'll find. And so everyone listening to this podcast, if you go to the show notes, all of those links will be linked up on here. So if you just go to info, all of the links that Lisa just said will be on there. So be sure to follow her, follow them. They're incredible. And I can't express more gratitude, because it's been amazing and it's a pleasure, and I'm so happy that you were on, and I can't wait to do the next one.
Oh, me too, Rosie. Thank you again so much for having me, and anything you need, let me know.
Oh my goodness. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I am so excited to continue to do this. Please share this with your friends. Email us, message us on Instagram at Rosie Acosta or on Twitter at Rosie Acosta. Subscribe on iTunes, write a review. We love doing this, so please help us continue to keep this podcast going. Thanks for listening.